The Central Plaza of Dzibilchaltún, known for the crystal clear waters of Cenote Xlaca, 16th century Spanish chapel, and for having one of the longest continuous step structures in Mesoamerica. Fieldwork was done in the area from 1993 to 1994, and again in 1998 through 1999 by Mexico's National Institute of Anthropology and History, or INAH. During this time, the excavation and preservation of at least 9 structures was conducted. Let's visit some of these structures and learn about the history that was uncovered. Structure 42 is located on the east side of the Central Plaza. The first phase of construction was of a long platform with rounded corners and steps facing towards the east. On the top of the platform, a long vaulted building with 21 entrances was built. Large stones were used for the construction of the platform, while smaller work stones make up the interior of the rooms. During the late Classic period, around 800 CE, an urn was deposited under the floor of the central room of the structure, along with an abundant offering of ceramics. The skeleton remains belonged to an adult male between 40 and 44 years old. The skeleton was broken up post-death, most likely to facilitate entrance inside the urn. Mixed with the human remains was a fractured deer bone, carved with hieroglyphs. The femur bone of a Ute deer, native to the land, was carved with the scene of a bird pulling out the eye of the jaguar god of the underworld. This represents death and burial, very similar to scenes depicted in the Madrid Codex. The carved hieroglyphs are read from left to right. The first 3 hieroglyphs are translated as Uach I Bak, meaning U his, Hach I, incised object or marked object, Bak, bone. The next 4 glyphs say Kalom Uk-U Chanchak. Kalom comes from Kal, to open, Uk-U, to drink, drinking vessel, Chan, sky, Chak, referring to the rain god. The final 5 hieroglyphs say Chichan Diho Aha Nail Ho Tsi Bak Ap. Chi, raised, Chan, sky, Diho, the 5, Aha, Lord, Nail, house of, Hot-I, 5 dog or bat. Bak-Ap was a title given to lords. The hieroglyphs can be translated as the carved bone of the one who opens the water of Chak in the sky, raised in the 5 sky, lord of house of 5 dog. Kalom is one of the most documented governors in Dzilbilchaltún, formerly known as Chichan Tijo. A stela can be seen used in the construction of structure 36, bearing similar hieroglyphs. From later ceramics found in structure 42, it appears to have been used for another 200 years after the burial. Today we see the remains of the vaulted ceiling and the rooms that were closed off during occupation, possibly due to structural reasons. Structure 44 closes off the south side of the Central Plaza. At 134 meters, or 444 feet in length, it's one of the longest continuous step buildings in Mesoamerica. The structure shows multiple periods of construction. The first construction is found to the west. It had round corners and was built close to Cenote Xlaca. From ceramics found in the structure, it could be dated to the late pre-classic period, around 600 BCE. The second expansion was towards the east. Structure sub-44 dates to the late pre-classic period, around 643 to 668 CE. The interior vaults are similar to those found inside structure sub-38. However, Sub 44 was built larger, and the remnants of the stucco plastered that once covered the building, along with the red paint made from hematite, are still visible. Inside Sub 44, drawings made from charcoal were also found. They show people with huge eyes and cranial deformation, done in graffiti style, possibly by the workers who covered the inside of the building with rocks during the late phase of construction. Stairs of Sub 44, located on its north side, that once wrapped around and led to the top of the structure, were also uncovered and can be seen today. Because of its fragile state, this substructure is not open to the general public at this time. The third expansion was also towards the east and gave the structure its final length of 440 feet. The final construction was finished in the late Classic period around 800 CE. On top of the structure, 3 vaulted buildings with 35 entrances facing towards the Central Plaza was built. Structure 44 was used from 800 to 1000 CE, or the late Classic to early Post-Classic period. If you stand in front of structure 36, facing towards structure 44, and you clap your hands, the echo coming from structure 44 will resemble a rattlesnake rattle. Before Spanish arrival, the Central Plaza and surrounding areas were still inhabited by Mayan families that practiced religious ceremonies there. After the Spanish conquest, a Franciscan chapel was built between 1580 and 1593 CE in order to better convert or force the native population into Christianity. The chapel was built from reused Mayan carved stones. The roof is a simple verroed vault, typical of those found in Yucatan chapels. It was decorated in a series of small solid masonry towers. Finally, it was smoothed over with stucco plaster, mixing Mayan and Spanish architecture. The open portion was made in an oval shape from cuchen or chulul, a native tree with a very hard and solid trunk. The roofs were made from palm leaves, called shan or guano. The chapel was made an open chapel. After the Spanish learned, the native population conducted ceremonial practices out in the open and not inside buildings like was the Spanish custom. It was also done to segregate native population from the Spanish, as the Franciscan priests did not see natives as rational beings with souls until they became Christians. When visited in 1941 by George Brainerd and Edward Willis, 2 American archaeologists, an image painted on the back wall was still visible. It showed a Franciscan bishop wearing a mitre and holding a crosier. Behind him was an archangel on a rearing horse, brandishing an unsheathed sword. North of the chapel is a small rectangular structure and was possibly the priest's residence. Inside, a stone was found with the date 1593 carved on it. This is where the assumed date of construction of the chapel comes from. Slightly further north are the remains of a large thatched structure used to house the chapel's caretaker and his family. Early 1940s photos show the chapel in good condition. However, in 1956, the mural could no longer be seen and the south wall had completely collapsed. The chapel was restored in 1962. These photos show the restoration process done by INA and the inhabitants of Dzilbilchaltún. The remains of a small sacristy the Franciscan bishop would have used prior to sermons is still standing along with the altar. 20 years after the construction of the chapel, the cross and the saints were moved to a new church in the modern town of Dzilbilchaltún, some 1,700 meters east from the site. The current inhabitants of Dzilbilchaltún are direct descendants of those who last lived in Dzilbilchaltún. Cenote Xlaca means old town in Mayan. At its widest point, it is 100 feet in length and at least 140 feet deep, bigger than the sacred cenote at Chichen Itza. In the 1950s, a dive crew was sent to explore the cenote. They noted a large pile of stones north of Cenote Shlaka, what today is known as Structure 45. Beginning at 60 feet, a cascade of carved and shaped stones flowed to the foot of the slope. The divers saw square and rectangle blocks of cut limestone with sharp edges, blocks with intricate geometric carving, columnar drums, and a door lintel at the foot of the slide. Diver Luis Martin wrote in the January 1959 National Geographic magazine, Dzilbilchaltún, Lost City of the Maya. Manuel, the camp caretaker, heard diver Fernando Ilwan and me discussing the enigma of this cataract of carved stones. It did not puzzle him. "That's the Cacique's castle, jefe," he said. "Our people say that a king had his castle standing where the cenote is now. One day, his mother came to ask him for water, and he sent her away, saying he had none. God, in his great anger, caused the ground to give way under him and his great house, and they all sank together into the cenote. He had plenty of water for them." During the 3 months spent diving, over 6,000 items were recovered from the cenote, including human and animal bones. Some of these items can be seen at the museum located in Dzilbilchaltún. Today, the cenote is closed due to fecal contamination. Structures 45 north and south will be the last structures we will visit. During excavation, 2 substructures were uncovered. Substructure 45 south was built close to Cenote Shlaka. From ceramics found, it was dated to the Middle Pre-Classic period, from 500 to 300 BCE, making it one of the oldest structures in Dzilbilchaltún. Sub 45 north was built during the same era. It had entrances that faced towards the west. Some of the original stucco used to cover the structure can still be seen. During the late Classic period, from 600 to 900 CE, 2 structures were built over them. Structure 45 south is a squared 3-tier pyramid with the remains of a double-chambered temple on top. Structure 45 north is a smaller 2-tiered structure, more rectangular, containing a number of chambers. Both of these structures were joined with megalith stairways that face towards the Central Plaza. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please subscribe. I'll be uploading a final part covering the Temple of the 7 Dolls and the Standing Temple.